Good afternoon. This is Shannon Burkle with Axios HR. Thank you so much for joining us. We are very excited today to talk about our co-employment solution, especially in the small business, small school space, and how it can help you grow and scale and focus on business core competencies or whatever your business mission is. Blythe Kazmierzak is going to lead us today. She's led a few of our webinars, comes to us with over 20 years of HR experience, has been helping our human resources department for the last almost 5 years. So glad to have her hosting today. And then she brought along with her a client. So we'll be able to talk through with a great client of ours and how we've been able to help them and hear from them directly. So we're really glad to have Next Creative on the line as well. So enjoy, and we'll cover a few follow-up items just at the end as we conclude the webinar.
Thanks, Shannon. So this is Blythe, and I'm your host for the webinar today. And we are gonna, basically, I'll give a little bit about Axios if you don't know about us first. We'll talk a little bit about Next Creative, who's here with us as well. And then we're really just gonna weave together the story, their story, and how we've been partnered together. So Axios HR is based in West Michigan, and we really are focused on improving the quality of life for individuals, families, and the communities we serve. And we really provide a wide breadth of human resource solutions. You can see here on the side the 3 services of human resources, insurance, and staffing. We're really focusing on our human resources space, but you hear some of what we can do on the HR side is really reflected in some pieces of insurance and staffing too. So it's really integrated together for small business. We're an ESOP, or 100% employee owned, and we support a little over 400 mid-sized businesses across the state, primarily in West Michigan, but across Michigan. So that's a little bit about us. And what we're going to just give a quick overview of co-employment, so you understand the, I guess, the technical definition of it and what this concept is it's really a partnership. It's a partnership between the employer and an HR service provider. It's just kind of a unique partnership, really, in that it provides business owners the ability to just have more control over their business. It really in 2 ways. By using kind of a pre-built set of HR solutions, you can improve the visibility that you would have over all areas of employment. We're going to talk about some of those areas. And the second is you just get to tap into leading practices. And often those practices, especially for smaller employers, they may not even need them yet. The ability to just take something off the shelf and put it in place when you need it is really that opportunity to adapt quickly. Small and medium-sized businesses are a dynamic environment where things move around quickly. A resource change or a single client or organization change can create a lot of disruption, and it can make you have to, jiggle things around. And really, by having this pre-structured solution, it allows you to respond quickly. Technically, on the HR service provider side, we become the employer of record. What that really means is it's a contractual relationship, and by becoming the employer of record, it allows us to buy things like benefits and other HR components on scale. So we've got multiple thousands of people that are on our various pieces of our program, and so we go to market, whether it's benefits or technology or other components, at a much bigger scale. So it's pre-vetted, pre-purchased, and negotiated based on having a little bit of buying power, so that employer, if they were to tap in and join that relationship, they have it basically off the shelf to use as they need. So this employer of record piece really is more of a contract element versus us. We don't think of it like we're truly the employer. We think of it like we're the employer on paper, and it allows us to do some of these things on employers' behalf. So that's really what co-employment is. And next, we're going to talk about Next Creative. So I have Rich here with me, and I think we have Tim on the line. So they're going to give a quick overview of their company and the 2 of them, and then we're just going to have a conversation after that about our partnership.
Cool. Yeah, so my business partner Tim is on the line, I think, too. So my name is Rich Evenhouse, and I'm the President Digital Director of Next Creative. My business partner Tim is our Creative Director. Tim and I started the business about a year and a half ago, and we really were just kind of two guys who wanted to start our own company. We had a few people who we were also working with, and we wanted a way to be able to start a company. And because our business is so talent driven, we really needed to be able to sort of turn on benefit options right away and to be able to find a solution for our payroll. Tim and I, Tim, speak into this whenever you'd like, but Tim and I are not we are not HR and we are not accountants. We actually are very involved in the business from the creative and the production side. So we really wanted to find a solution where we could stay involved with our business and have a solution ready to go for any new talent that we were going to bring into the agency.
Yeah, I would just add to that. When we started the business, Rich and I were in a position where payroll and finding healthcare plans and 401k plans for our employees, as much as we wanted to do that, it was about the last thing we had time to do because our company started up in a pretty unique and quick fashion. So we really need to focus on development right away and getting some of our business insurance, those types of things done so we could do the work that we do. And it was just a huge relief to take a big chunk of those worries and put them onto a partner.
Cool. Tim, I couldn't quite hear everything you said there, but what's been great for us with our relationship with Axios is us being able to really be able to offer all of these options to our people. And anytime, you know, it's always a big deal. You want to make sure that you have a benefit offering, and we have plenty of options as far as what Axios can bring to the table for plans that we can offer our employees. Another thing that we're hoping to get to is because we're a small business, we're sort of growing into a lot of these offerings, and so we can tell our new employees, hey, or current employees, hey, you have a 401k program. We can't necessarily match that yet, but down the road, that is a plan. However, that definitely is something that you can do on your own. I think there's some other insurance coverage options, dental, vision. I think there's a pet plan. There's a few other things, and our employees really appreciate the fact that they have access to all of those things. And not only that, but what's really cool is that Tim and I both have the ability, you know, we can talk to our team about any issues or any things that come up for them. But when it comes to HR, we have a solution that we can sort of direct them. Hey, you should talk to Melanie, who's our representative from Axios, if you have questions about your plan or about anything that might be, you know, that you might have a question about. And then they can also go to the online portal and they can check out their own personal stuff in a cool, easy to use online format that's available to them anywhere they are, as long as they have an internet connection.
So Rich and Tim, thanks for the overview. We're just gonna walk through this, and we talk about the co-employment solution in terms of the outcomes we're trying to create for business owners, really in 5 areas. And so we've touched on a few of these a little bit, but we're just gonna talk about each of them and talk about how the partnership works at more of a like weekly, monthly, you know, kind of basis. So we'll start on the cost side, that really it's about helping employers manage the overall cost. So we talked about buying power, but there's other pieces to that too in terms of helping them make choices right? So when I talked at the beginning about visibility, we're going to talk a little bit more about where we create that. On the compliance side, what I often hear from business owners is that they're just worried there's something they're doing wrong. I mean, in our kind of highly regulated environment from a business community, when you're starting out, or even if you're a fairly mature, small or medium-sized business, the rules move around, and just the peace of mind of knowing you've got somebody who's, has their finger on that stuff and is making sure stuff is staying in compliance. On the care side, we talked a little bit about the portal. We'll poke around a little bit more there. But if we really step back and talk about the employee experience in terms of both the person that they get to work with that can answer their questions and the systems that they get to work with, we'll talk about both of those things. We talked a little bit about benefits. That's one of the ways to compete for talent. We'll talk about a few others. And then in the last one, from a culture perspective, one of the common things we hear from our business owners is that it's really allowed them to be out in front more with their employees, creating the culture that they want, with us more behind the scenes, giving them either tools or resources or connections. And so we'll talk a little bit about that too. So the first one, and what was intended here, is this is how we talk about the partnership. So we're just going to use this as really an opportunity to talk about how this has worked with Next Creative. So generally, the employer sets that vision and strategy and builds their leadership and management team. And we're really there to basically figure out, how do we align HR to who they are, right? So we don't really have one way that our solution works for clients. It really can look different. And sometimes that's helping managers or leaders with a single issue. Sometimes it's providing training or different things. So I guess I'll just toss it back to Rich and Tim and say, when you think about your role in your organization and trying to manage that culture, how did you go about doing it? And it could be that we haven't had an opportunity to help much here, but just how have we, or how could we be, helping you on this front?
I think from as far as being the employer of, we're at 7 people now. We started with 4 of us. At this point, I think from a culture perspective, it definitely helps us really offer something to our employees that improves their quality of life by being employed with us. Like I said, we're talent driven, and that means that we have to really be competitive with other creative agencies. So it's an important thing. It helps alleviate issues with our employees. They don't have to worry about their health benefits and all of that kind of stuff, and therefore they can focus on work and know that it's handled when they need it to be.
So the next one is really around competitive. Rich talked a little bit about having to, talent was so important to this particular business. And it's important for any business, but for a very talent-focused business model, right, where your people are out in front with your clients.
Right.
So we talked a little bit about the Fortune 500 level benefits program, and then also just helping you on the side of communicating both the benefits and compensation, so they really understand what they have access to. And then potentially, just because we are out in the market from a staffing perspective. So those are some of the ways that we help people be competitive. I think we've talked a little bit about this one, but anything else that you wanted to add?
Tim, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if there were some audio issues or not. Yeah, I mean, for our business being in advertising and design, the talent attraction thing we kind of handle because it's really unique in terms of like what skill sets we're looking for, but definitely having a resource to understand compensation trends and stuff like that goes a long way in terms of how we recruit. So that's been really helpful. And the other thing too, I think this kind of went with the first category, is just that from a culture standpoint, having Axios as a partner just helps us, being a new business, look pretty buttoned up to our personnel. So when they come on, we don't look like we're just kind of throwing this thing together and paying them with a written check when we can. I mean, we're we're looking like a pretty well-run organization from the get-go.
That's a great point. You know, that impression that you make in the recruiting process can really make a big difference in terms of folks making the decision to join you or another employer. So I'm going to move on to the next one, which is what we call CARE. And this is really, from an Axios perspective, there's really two pieces. The platform that, you know, Rich described quickly, that integrates all of these pieces into one login. So everybody forgets their password these days, and it's hard to keep track of them all. So having everything connected into one place, and then having kind of an outside but inside HR presence where somebody can have a confidential discussion, and it doesn't necessarily, you know, their boss might not know what they're struggling with or may need to know, as depending on what the issue is, and that kind of safe spot where you get to talk to somebody with something as simple as a question or something more complicated like a concern or a personal situation. So kind of those are the two pieces that we bring together from our perspective, but a lot of this has to match what the organization is trying to do operationally, right? So maybe you guys could talk a little bit about how that's played out for your employees or any examples where this has been helpful.
It's been good to be able to have access to that system in order to sort of see what kind of what's going on from just being able to manage our team and to be able to answer questions, to sort of have a platform to answer those personal things, but to also have a place for them to be able to go if they don't quite feel like they want to come to us first. They definitely have some options, and I think having those options has been beneficial.
So the next area, and this is often a place where we start with clients on the compliance side, is, you know, in many cases, the employer still has a lot of flexibility around the policies they want to set for their business. You know, we start with kind of a starter set and then basically ask for input when we set up new clients. And that can look like an employee handbook. It can look like the way we manage files. You know, and then there's just some stuff that has to get done, you know, certain files that have to get submitted to various agencies and kind of certain things that have to get completed. So that's really where we're focused, but I'm curious if you can think of any examples, just because you're more of a newer client to us, where we were able to help you really foster your peace of mind or get some of this stuff done in a way that helped you do it quickly.
Yeah, I mean, we are a startup. We started about a year and a half ago, and I think we were just talking about this before. We joined Axios in just after our first month of actually being a company, and there were definitely some things in that initial business, us getting set up with our employee taxes and all those other things that Axios was able to give us guidance on and to help us sort of get those things set up. There were things that we needed to know from an HR perspective that Tim and I we just wouldn't know those things. And, you know, there was a lot of that sort of coaching that went into it as a new business was really helpful.
And then I'm just going to talk quickly about the last one, and then we'll open it up to a little bit of a Q&A. Hopefully we'll have a few minutes left. So this last one is really the cost piece. And this is often where, what I like to say is you're going to spend money on payroll and you're going to spend money on benefits. But there are other costs of being an employer that you really want to minimize that don't, directly impact your employees and their satisfaction with you. And so our goal is really to give you as much visibility as possible around that whole expense and help you make choices about where you want it to go based on what you're trying to accomplish. And on the benefits side, we do have the option to put some buying power in there to help you potentially have some better choices than you would if you were out on your own. So from this perspective, I think we talked a little bit about kind of being ready to go with benefits and that buying power. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to add on this topic?
Tim, you want to take this one?
Yeah, one thing that was really helpful to us is you guys just really worked with us at the beginning, help us manage cash flow, because I know we needed to have a certain amount as like a deposit to cover a payroll, and we were able to spread that cost out over a couple months, which or several pay periods, which really helped Rich and I manage the runway we had to work with in terms of getting the company going. So it felt like a perfectly reasonable thing you needed, but it was awesome that you understood where we were in that stage of our company and worked with us. And we, at our last agency, had talked to, I think it was ADP, and we loved, the concept of what they had, but we had complete sticker shock when they told us what it was going to cost. And so it was really refreshing to then talk with you guys, and it felt like all of, or probably more of the types of services, but at a rate that a small company like ours could handle.
Well, thanks, Tim. Hopefully, so, Next Creative is a great example of a startup organizations. We work with many of them. Sometimes the story looks quite different. We're working with very large organizations that have a bunch of stuff that they already have established, and our job is to try to absorb that and meet them where they're at and kind of figure out where we can be helpful. So the story, I would say this is a typical story, but I've also seen client examples that are quite different from this in terms of they come to us with a bunch of things already decided and built, and we've got to figure out how to, again, just meet them where they're at and figure out where to be helpful. So hopefully this gave you guys at least an example of a client and how co-employment worked. And at this point, we'll just open it up the line to any questions. You can send it either in the chat and we can read it back, or if you, can they speak into the?
You can unmute someone if they raise their hand.
Okay, so if you raise your hand, we can unmute you. Okay, so sounds like no questions. So thanks for your time. After this, you will be receiving an email, and that will have a link to the recording of this webinar if you wanted to share it with any of your coworkers or connections, or view it again. And also, you'll be getting a link with a link to Next Creative's website. We're really appreciative for their ability to come and share their story here today. They actually recently did a video for us, and we were really, it's great to be able to work with someone that you've already partnered with, and we were really impressed with the quality of their work, and we're excited to see our video. So we just can share that in case that's a helpful connection for anyone as well. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.